I'm Gary Sutton, and welcome to my podcast, Just a Voice on Main Street. I'm also the host of the Gary Sutton Show, heard weekdays on WOYK Radio here in York, Pennsylvania, 1350 AM, 98.9 FM. But what I'm doing all the time is I'm in search of other voices on Main Street America, and there are so many with so many different stories to tell, and we like to try to get to the essence of what those stories are. And for many of you, you might have thought of, well, if I ever lost my wallet, it would be a bad thing, but I probably wouldn't get it back, and I'd have to go through all kinds of inconvenient things to try to recover and all that. It wouldn't be a life-changing experience. For our next guest this morning, it was a life-changing experience because of what happened after he lost his wallet, and I'm talking about Kevin Smith, who is the founder of Kindness Worldwide, and he's my guest today here on Just a Voice on Main Street. Kevin, great to have you in this morning. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, Gary. And yourself?
I'm doing pretty well, but you had a life-changing experience losing your wallet at the grocery store, and that's where we start this story today. Tell us a little bit about what happened.
Well, Gary, you're really asking me to describe the indescribable. I mean, who would have thought a routine trip to the grocery store on Good Friday morning 2023 would have become the adventure of a lifetime it's been? I may have lost my wallet that day, but what I found was priceless. I found my purpose.
Tell people a little bit about what happened. You lost your wallet at the grocery store. You're out there getting groceries like everybody else. Good Friday, I guess, getting ready for the Easter weekend, and all of a sudden you get home and you say, oh, like all of us might, and then what happened?
Well, it began innocently enough on a routine errand. My wife sent me to the grocery store on a honey-do list. Pick up 2 items at Wise Markets. I mean, how hard is that? Well, only somebody like me could mess it up, because I picked up the 2 items just fine. I checked out, drove straight home. I pulled in my driveway at 9:55 a.m., and Ring doorbell footage captured everything. I walk back inside, my honey-do list is over, I've got the rest of my day free, reach for my back pocket, and my wallet's missing. I frantically search my car, it's not there. My finger is literally on the panic button, which is the ignition button of my car,
right,
because I knew I had to have left it behind the store. And in that precise moment, like an angel out of heaven, a young woman magically appears, holding my wallet, asking if it was mine. And so I went from this state of kind of despair. I mean, it's a wallet, it's only money, but it's more than that.
Sure.
It's photos of lost loved ones, it's convenience, replacing credit cards and driver's license, et cetera. But so I went from being this sense of despair to being overjoyed, just like that, in a heartbeat. And I thanked this young woman profusely. I offered her a monetary reward she refused to accept. And as she was about to drive away, I had the impulse to ask her name, and she said it was Brooke. And I walked back inside. I was just overwhelmed by what had just happened. She literally went the extra mile for me, 2.6 to be exact, from the store to my home. And I felt I should have gone the extra mile for her. A thank you just didn't seem enough. And so from that point on, I impulsively emailed the news. I said, this just happened to me. This inspired me. If you cover the story, I think it might inspire others as well. But more importantly, I thought if this young woman would see it, it'd be a way of acknowledging her in a more meaningful way. And Ann Shannon from WGAL 8 responded within 7 minutes, and something in my email resonated with her, and she came to my home the following Monday and covered the story, and it aired that evening, and the next thing I knew, it had become a story in practically every state of the country, and all because of a lost wallet, and it just precipitated a surreal chain of events, so many coincidences you wouldn't believe, so many serendipitous moments. And it became so much more than just acknowledging this young woman in a more meaningful way. It became about making a meaningful difference.
So this could have stopped right there. Okay, so it ends up being a great story. A lot of people pick it up nationally. We're all looking for good news on Main Street these days because so many times the bad news dominates. But it didn't stop there for you. You went another step, and I guess we're led in that direction. You've talked privately to me about that, but I want you to relate publicly to people what that next step was for you to go into a journey of a lifetime.
Yeah, well, this act of kindness changed my life in 2 ways. Look, I was a good person before Good Friday morning. I'm
Sure.
a much better person now because of this act of kindness. But number one is it changed my paradigm of the world. I was a news junkie, and I would watch the news all the time and check my Twitter feed and always kept up on current events. But without me realizing it, I was being conditioned to see the world through a lens that was increasingly glass half empty instead of half full.
Okay.
And this act of kindness essentially snapped me out of that trance and made me realize that despite the narrative, despite what we see and read in the news every day, that good and kindness is everywhere. It's the norm, not the exception. The second way it changed my life is that I used to feel powerless to do anything about all the the bad things that are happening. Look, bad things occur, can't deny that it exists, but I would feel powerless to do anything about it. I mean, who am I to do anything? And as subsequent chain of events unfolded, it actually opened up pathways where I realized that, you know what, maybe I could do something after all. And instead of dwelling on my circle of concern, which I could do nothing about, I started to focus on what I could control. Circle of influence versus circle of concern. And then I started to believe, you know what, maybe I can do something about all these things I felt I couldn't do anything about, or if nothing else, I'm committed to try. But it all started, innocently enough, I just wanted to say thank you to this young woman in a more meaningful way. I wanted to identify who she was, and because all I knew was her first name. And Gary, when this story went viral and all the positivity it inspired, so many positive comments, I'm like, does this young woman even know? And so it weighed on me that she may not even know what her act of kindness inspired. So it was a long shot, but no Hail Mary pass was ever caught that was never attempted. But Gary, any idea how many Brooks there are on Facebook?
There are a lot of Brooks on Facebook, yes.
More than a few. And so I just scrolled under the name Brooke. I assumed it was spelled with an E. And I scrolled for countless minutes, and honestly, I'm about to give up. I'm like, this is not going to work. I swiped one more time, and I saw a profile picture of a young woman and her dog, and that caught my eye. I thought, maybe this is her, not sure. So I messaged her on Facebook with a link to the story, asked if it was her, and sure enough, it was. And she actually thanked me for thanking her. I was struck by her modesty and humility throughout, and she made a comment that stuck with me. She said, Kevin, I'm just a blurry face. Because in the Channel 8 segment, they blurred out her face to protect her identity because no one knew who she was. And I think that comment stuck with me for many reasons, because how many of us really feel like the blurry face, that
right.
that we're insignificant, we don't matter? Well, everyone matters. But at least I knew that she was aware of the story. She was very appreciative, but there was still something more I felt I should do to make sure that she's seen, that she's acknowledged. And so I discovered this young woman. I thought the media might be interested in now knowing who this young woman was, but it seemed like the media moved on. But I didn't. And something just kept weighing on me about that comment. But a couple of days later, believe it or not, Inside Edition became aware of the story. And at first I thought it was a joke. I get an email from my work from Inside Edition. The story coordinator wanted to know if I knew who this young woman was and if she'd be open to doing an interview. And I was excited because she would no longer be the blurry face. And so I reached out to Brooke, and I was very sensitive to her privacy. I said, this is kind of strange, but Inside Edition's now become aware of the story. And she was open to doing it and excited about it, as was I. So there was supposed to be an interview the following Friday. But at the last minute, another storyline emerged, took higher priority. So it went on the back burner. Understanding is that they would reschedule it, but it never happened. And it's one of the great ironies of this story, because had that story aired, had Inside Edition covered the story, there'd be no story. We would not be having this conversation because my work is done.
Right.
This young woman's no longer the blurry face. She's publicly acknowledged. So the story didn't air, and I'm like, well, now what? I still felt something inside me that needs to do more, to go above and beyond for her. And again, so many serendipitous moments, so many coincidences. Another is a fascinating connection to the York County SPCA.
Okay.
So again, I discovered this young woman doing a profile picture of her dog. I had a meeting on April 26, 2023, just a short time after this event occurred, with Stephen Martinez, York County SPCA Executive Director. I used to be on the board of the SPCA for 12 years. I've known Stephen for quite some time. He would update me on the organization. So we had a meeting on our calendar at Prince Street Cafe in downtown York. This was on our calendar long before the events of Good Friday morning. Stephen is late for that meeting, and he apologizes profusely for being late. Gary, any idea why he might have been late?
I have no idea. Probably having something having to do with the animals, but I don't know.
He forgot his wallet.
Oh, no.
I mean, you can't make this up. And I just shook my head. I laughed. I said, Stephen, did you hear about my lost wallet story?
Right.
And he hadn't. He's probably the only one in York County who hadn't heard about my lost wallet at that point. So I shared with him the story, how I discovered this young woman due to the profile picture of her dog. And he made a comment that really resonated with me. He said, Kevin, I've always felt that pets are like social glue that bond people and communities together.
Interesting statement, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that comment. I'm an animal lover. So on the drive home, my instincts kicked in again. And I sensed there might be a deeper connection with this young woman. So I scrolled her Facebook feed again, and I discovered that she's passionate about animals, as am I, but also a big supporter of the York County SPCA. And that is when I had the idea of making a donation to the York County SPCA in her honor, and the idea of a community celebration of kindness at which she would be honored, because pets are the glue that bond people and communities together.
Okay.
That's when that took root. And from that point on, I started thinking, well, what would a community celebration of kindness entail? And then all these ideas kept coming. I mean, an idea of, well, let's recognize Kindness Week, let's proclaim it, and kindness citations, and everything that this special celebration, bringing people and communities together at a time our world seems so divisive. It just took on a life of its own, and this adventure has, it just continues to this day. It hasn't stopped. Again, no words to describe it.
So you start something called Kindness Worldwide, in which you describe yourself as a founder, visionary, and chief kindness chaser, which is a wonderful description of your title there. So this didn't just stop at that point. This wallet got returned. You meet this girl. You're thanking her. You're trying to publicly give some acclaim to her. You're following up now in her relationship with animals and SPCA. You're providing a kindness week here. A lot of people are saying, Kevin, you went around the bend. What happened? But you went around the bend in a good way here for you, because you were kind of following instincts, it sounds like, a lot along the way here. So you get to this Kindness Worldwide. Tell us about how that got started, and now how that starts to relate into not just ideas, but into real things.
Yeah. Well, the York County SPCA asked me to put my objectives down in writing for this event, because originally it was going to be held at the York County SPCA. It later outgrew the SPCA. We actually held it at the 1741 Club at the York Revolution in Wellspan Park. And so I had a document. I started to put all my objectives in writing as to what I wanted this event to look like. And by then I had all these ideas of proclamations for Kindness Week and kindness citations. I had this framework all laid out. And my wife suggested I keep a timeline of all the people I was meeting with, because I was meeting with people day after day, community leaders, trying to get them to see what I see as the potential here. And so it was August. I had this document coincidentally laying on my table. And my brother-in-law was up visiting for the weekend. Now, my brother-in-law is Michael Binko. He's done entrepreneurship his entire career. He's known throughout the country. He's one of the most brilliant entrepreneur minds in the country. And he knew what I was doing, but didn't really know all the details. I mean, he advises startup companies. That's what he does. And he's reading this document on my dining room table. I'm sitting in my corner chair. I mean, I'm spent. I mean, I'm exhausted. I mean, I'm sprinting a marathon literally every waking minute. If I got an hour or two sleep a night, that was pushing it. I just wanted to see that to be over. I have my coffee on my left. I have my dog on my right in my lap. I'm in my happy place. I'm just exhausted. He's reading this document, and it was 76 pages at the time. It's 360 pages now, by the way. So it's grown quite a bit.
So it's grown quite a bit, yeah.
And after reading it, he looks up at me and he says, Kevin, his exact words, he says, Kevin, do you realize you have created in 5 months a sustainable, replicable model that has a higher probability of success than the most promising startup companies he's ever worked with takes 5 years or more to do? And I looked at him like, what model? Like, what are you talking about? I mean, I'm just planning this event for my community and to bring people and communities together. And he says, Kevin, he said, this framework for Kindness Week, this is something that can be brought to communities anywhere and everywhere. He said, our world needs this right now. He said, there's so much divisiveness. This could actually bring people and communities together more broadly. He says, you can't stop with York. You've got to start a nonprofit. And honestly, Gary, in that moment, and I get emotional just thinking about it, because that was a key moment in this adventure. My head went down and my shoulders sank. And I knew at that moment my life would never be the same. Because I saw it, I saw the potential. And if I didn't pursue it, I felt I would be part of the problem, not the solution. And so we started talking about it and said, well, okay, what do we call the nonprofit? And I'm still thinking relatively small scale, Kindness York, Kindness Pennsylvania, because by then Governor Shapiro had engaged.
Sure, right.
And he looks up and he said, well, Kindness Worldwide's available. And I'm like, well, isn't that a little bit, pretty bold and ambitious?
Pretty big, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a humble guy. And he said, no, Kevin, it's Kindness Worldwide. So reserve the domain name. And he was right, because it's called Worldwide for a reason. This Movement of Kindness Week is now spreading to communities throughout the world. It's being celebrated as far away as Delphi, Greece, and Australia, several communities locally, but also in other states. It's led me to Palermo, Italy, where I gave the keynote address at the 11th General Assembly of the World Kindness Movement last October. In my remarks, I called on leaders at all levels, all communities, all countries, including every member nation of the United Nations, to elevate kindness to a global shared value that represents all of humanity. And at the time, I had no idea how I'd get to the United Nations. I just believed that I could, because people are resonating. The World Kindness Movement's coalescing around this, because we can see the ripple effects of what one act of kindness can do. And so February of this year, I was at the United Nations at the invitation of the Sutton Institute that I'm now a member of. And so people are starting to see it. I met President George W. Bush just a week or so ago. And I'm going to be meeting with Governor Cox in Utah next week. Governor Shapiro's engaged. And so
met with Steve Wozniak as well the other week.
Met with Steve Wozniak, the founder of Apple. So people are very supportive of what I'm trying to do. President Bush, I mean, it's a moment I'll never forget when I met with him privately. He says, Kevin, thank you for doing what you're doing. And it really hit home to me. I mean, there's a former president thanking me, and I thanked him, and I said, but Mr. President, we're all in this together. I mean, this is not my story, it's our story. And this movement will not have any traction were it not for us.
Do you think people want to be kind? I do. I mean, I think people want to be kind, but it's almost like we sense in our society today, and maybe it's just the way the media has portrayed it or whatever, that we aren't kind to each other. And yet I think there is. It's kind of like a dormant kind of thing that kind of went to sleep for a while, and it needs to be reawakened. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think there's perception and there's reality.
Okay.
The question is how big of a gap there is. And I think often just with the daily news flow, if we're conditioned like I was, before I kind of had that wake-up call, so to speak, is it's easy to take this jaded view of the world and kind of see the worst, see the bad in others instead of seeing the good. And the mantra of Kindness for What is see the good, be the good, go the extra mile. And so the reality is that good and kindness is everywhere. It's the norm, not the exception. Yes, bad things happen, but it should never overshadow that the predominant number of stories out there are very positive. We may not ever hear about them, but good and kindness are the norm. Yes, bad things do occur. But I look back, I always reflect back on the analogy of the innocence of a child. I think we're all generally born good people. Mm-hmm. And the innocence of a child is unlike any other. I often reflect back, I think of the Middle East situation with the Israelis and Palestinians. Well, think of a newborn Israeli or Palestinian. Do they know anything other than love? They don't know any animals.
Right.
It's conditioned. It's taught. It's learned behavior. It's not natural behavior. And I'm convinced that if we can condition animus, because I think external influences, whatever it may be, ultimately shapes us into how we evolve as human beings. But if we can condition animus, we can also recondition kindness and remind us all of our shared humanity and the good that we have in each other, in ourselves. And if every single individual would just focus on mindful kindness, focus on the little things, which are really the big things. And I always say, my favorite quote is, be the reason someone believes in the goodness of people. We have that power within us. That is our choice. And if everyone would just focus on each day, each interaction in that way, try to be the best version of yourself, be the reason someone believes in the goodness of people, our world would instantly change. It's not dependent upon anyone else. It's really dependent upon ourselves.
Now, for people watching and listening to this podcast right now, you're saying, wow, this seems really idealistic, and it is. But it's also realistic. If you think about the idea that we get conditioned every day by bad news, that's what we expect because that's what catches our attention. If we're conditioned every day by negativity in terms of our politics and the things that we're talking about, and you talk about the polar divide in the beginning, if we're conditioned by that, why would it not also be possible to condition ourselves with positive acts every day, such as the kind you're talking about, simplicity? And you say, could it be done? Well, we look around the world right now, and you mentioned earlier about the things we don't control. These are the things we do control. Our actions with other people every day, with other groups, how we deal with other people. Talk about some of the things you're doing, from cards to citations to other kinds of things. where if we deluge ourselves with negative stuff every day, can't we deluge ourselves also with positive things? Give us some examples on that, Kevin.
Well, the vision of Kindness Worldwide is to create a culture of kindness in communities throughout the world. And it's not just a pipe dream. There's many aspects and ways of doing that. So obviously we can recognize formally what I think is humanity's greatest asset, which is kindness. That's where the Kindness Week proclamations by mayors and governors comes into play.
Right.
But we can also focus on mindful kindness. So we have See the Good and Be the Good kindness cards available on our website.
Right.
A See the Good card is simply a card that says, I see the good in you. And it's a way to focus on mindful kindness, to look for the good in others. It could be someone doing a kind act or maybe just a simple smile. But you acknowledge them. You make them be seen and say, hey, I thank you for being the person you are, for what you just did. They all feel great about that when you acknowledge them. And then they're encouraged to then look for the good in someone else and pass it forward. Continue that ripple effect. A Be the Good card are cards that have 16 simple acts of kindness.
Right.
We had many merchants locally handing them out, coffee shops at point of sale. And it's a simple act of kindness. It can be simple as
say something nice to someone today that you didn't say before.
Or send a meaningful note to someone meaningful.
Pay it forward on someone today, and things like that. Yeah.
Compliment someone. There's always a reason. And so the recipient of this card is encouraged to perform the simple act, hand that card to the other individual, and then they're encouraged to do the same. Again, continue the ripple effect. Anyone can be the ripple to start a wave. Look, this young woman who returned my wallet, she's just an ordinary individual. I'm just an ordinary guy. Ordinary people do extraordinary things each and every day. And I think we often woefully underestimate the power within us, to be that ripple to start a wave, just like this young woman did with this one simple act. We all can be that ripple. I think one of the things that's resonating about my story, which is really our story, is that we can trace the effect of one simple act of kindness. We can see the impact it's made. In fact, one person is alive today that was ready to take their life, that saw the video on the Kindness Worldwide homepage, and it gave them hope, renewed sense of purpose.
Wow.
And it was the most beautiful email I've ever received. If that's all that ever happened because it's one act of kindness, that is enough. But so much more is happening because of it. But kindness, I would argue, is the world's greatest superpower. It's a power each and every one of us possesses. And all it takes is a simple, conscious choice that we control to unleash it. And if we do, the benefits are very profound, not just to others, not just to the recipients of acts of kindness, but to the giver. It comes back. There's a huge boomerang effect. And we all have that power within us.
Kevin, we hope that you've started a worldwide movement here. It's going to become contagious to people watching this podcast today. KindnessWorldwide.org. Check it out if it's intriguing to you. Maybe it's something to take a longer look at. But, we all have the ability to be kind to everyone in our world. And we could start with us. We don't have to look out there and worry about being helpless. We're not helpless any longer. We can be helpful to a lot of people. KindnessWorldwide.org. Check it out. Kevin, thanks so much for joining me today. It's been an honor.
Thank you so much, Gary. And just a takeaway is see the good, be the good, go the extra mile, and be that reason someone believes in the goodness of people.
Can't say it any better. Thanks so much for joining us on the Main Street of America today. I'm Gary Sutton. Listen weekdays 6 to 9 on WOYK Radio, 1350 AM, 98.9 FM in York, Pennsylvania.